Take 5. Hello. Welcome back to TSC Talks, the podcast where we talk about tuberous sclerosis complex and other related issues such as intellectual and developmental disabilities and autism. My name is Jill Woodworth and I'm your host. On today's episode, my guest is Cecilia Pratt. She is in the Baltimore, Maryland area, originally from California, and she was a referral from the Facebook page. Didn't know much about her going into the interview, did some scoping or searching to find out, which I usually do, kind of researching my guests and not having a lot of friends in common. So I went into the interview kind of cold. And I think a lot had been going on personally with some TSC related issues, which usually is going on some level, whether emergent or behind the scenes administratively. So I was in kind of a funky mood, kind of down, and didn't know anything about her, and just really kind of engaged into the interview. And we both found we had a lot of common experiences dealing with TAN behaviors. She has a son who is presenting some challenges with the TAN behaviors. She talks a lot about her efforts with school advocacy and difficulty with a diagnosis, not necessarily getting the diagnosis, but the way the information was delivered and how that impacted her and how it impacted her husband at the time. And really very honest. We kept trying to navigate to something positive and kept finding more and more that we had in common that was frustrating. So it's a very, I don't know, I'm not going to say negative because she is just telling it like it is. And I really appreciate that because sometimes there just is no way to put a spin on TSC and what we manage day in and day out. Behind the scenes, what no one sees, the impact on relationships, our own personal mental health, watching our kids move in and out of experiences that are extremely traumatic and terrifying at times, and ongoing seizures she talks about, connecting with a clinic that really was able to help her. So there's a lot here. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking. I keep re-recording this and recording this over and over, and I really need to get a podcast up. So thanks, Cecilia. This is part 1. We're going to have part 2. Take it away, Cecilia. Thanks again for being on. And
thank you for having me.
Sure. Why don't you tell me just a little bit about, where you're from?
So I'm originally from Santa Rosa, California.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think I saw Pennsylvania on your, Maryland. Maryland,
yes,
is it? Yes.
So
okay.
I moved out here about 8 years ago. I met my husband online.
Did you?
Yes, we met, and I decided, because at that time I had lost my job and my husband still had a job out here.
Uh-huh.
And I decided to take my oldest. He's the one that has TSC.
Okay.
I decided to up and move us and take a chance. And we've been here for 8 years.
Wow.
So that's where I'm originally from. But now we're here in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
And it's pretty nice.
That's a big change.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially, I'm from the East Coast, so some of my family lived out in California for a while, and I went out, and I just, it's not like it's that different, but it's just different. It is different.
It is different. And I do miss California at times, but the last 3 years we've been visiting during the summertime. So we're actually going to be taking off in about 3 weeks back to California to visit.
Oh, good.
So we get to be around family. Because over here in Maryland, I don't have that much family or a lot of friends. Just mutual and connecting there, but nobody really close besides, my mother-in-law and stuff. That's it.
That's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. I've been there in several different times. And I can say too, even now I don't have tons of connections. Just kind of can't keep up with them all. I just have too much else going on to put a lot of energy into, a lot of interaction unless it's somebody that I feel like I trust, kind of.
That's true. That's how I am.
Is
I'm
it?
pretty much focused on my husband and my kids right now. That's pretty much all I'm focused on.
Yep. I totally get that. And I think I lived that way for a long time. And I still, have to. And that's, I think, something that people don't understand is that it doesn't just end.
you know, and that's not to be discouraging because it definitely is changes and everything, but it doesn't, it's not like you get to this point where you can just go, you know, say bye-bye, see you, you know, you're going to college.
Exactly.
Yay. Oh.
Exactly. So I got
wow,
3
that was a
kids,
rant.
so I'm constantly busy.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience with the diagnosis?
So with the diagnosis, so at 5 months old, this was back in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And my son was 5 months old at the time. And what I noticed is that because he was dark complected, and I noticed he had like white patches on his skin.
Okay.
So I just thought maybe his pigment wasn't coming all the way in. You know, I couldn't think of it. So at the time with my ex-husband, we were married at the time, I decided to do an appointment for a dermatologist.
Uh-huh.
I go in, dermatologist comes in the room right away, sees my son, sees my ex-husband at the time, and is like, I'll be back. She comes back with a book. She diagnosed him right away. Oh, he has TSC.
Wow.
And I'm like,
wow.
And so I'm sitting there confused because
wow.
with my ex-husband, I didn't know my ex-husband had TSC.
Yeah, I have a similar story.
Yeah, I did not know. He said because he wasn't raised with his parents, so he remembered going to the hospital when he was smaller, and he had some signs, but I didn't know what it was.
Well, of course, no, of course.
And so she's seeing my ex-husband, and she's looking at my son, and I go into like shock mode.
Of course, I can remember that moment. It's like a flash in my head.
Right. It's like you're trying to concentrate what they're saying, but at the same time, you're like, what's I don't understand.
Right. What does this mean?
And she's showing me pictures. And so the pictures, it's like, what? So then I turned to the window. There was a window in the office and I crying emotionally, but silently to myself.
Yep.
And I just told her I need a moment. And then I remember my ex-husband apologizing and I just was confused.
Yeah. I mean, you're processing things on all different levels in one moment.
And that's when she says, well, 50% chance this could happen. And so that's why I said at 5 months old, he was diagnosed. It was very shocked. I think for that first week, I excluded myself. Like I didn't know what to do.
Of course.
I remember just looking at him and then praying and crying and, because everything that when she explained like all the symptoms and what can come, I just remembering like.
Was she very compassionate about it or was it?
It was very cut and dry. It wasn't very compassionate. So it was like, basically like, this is what it is and this is what you're going to have to deal with and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you have sweetened that up a little bit, please?
And remember, I was 20 years old at the time too. My son's 14 now, so it was 14 years ago. I was 20 years old at the time.
Wow.
I was young. I don't,
I got married. My first marriage was 20 and I know how hard my first pregnancy with my son was. And I can't imagine that, getting that because you just don't, I had no clue how to be a parent.
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea. And the thing is, I've never heard of this condition. So yeah. So that was my first experience with the diagnosis.
Yeah. The only positive, and it's not positive, but the sooner the better.
Right.
So I try to think of like how it would be as a doctor, I don't know. There's just no good way to say it, but we've got to come up with a good way. Right.
And I think because she's not part of that TSC field, she's just a dermatologist. I think she just felt like she didn't really know how to be compassionate in that way. It was kind of like, okay, well, this is what it is, being her professional side, but not realizing that I'm a 20-year-old girl in this room.
And how that's going to impact you and where, understand. Yeah. It's just could be.
Right. It just didn't sound sincere. It was like, kind of like that pat on your shoulder, like, oh, well, and it's like, okay.
I know.
So, but that was, like I said, that was the diagnosis. And, my ex-husband at the time, he took it really hard. He blamed himself.
Mm-hmm.
It was very distraughting for him because he felt like he failed.
Wow.
He passed this on to him and basically almost to the point where he went into a dark place.
I get it. There's just no right way to handle something like that. And there's just got to be a better way. So.
And I think, and I went to a denial place too for a couple years.
Well, I think that's, I did too, off and on. I did.
Yeah, I did as well. And I just kind of was like, okay, it'll kind of pass, he should be okay. Like that kind of denial.
Right. Of course you're bargaining. And, there is I got tapped in pretty early with the Boston clinics and there was a lot of hope that I was given. I don't regret that they gave me hope because I needed that and it helped. It kind of kept me going to get the best treatments and, until I couldn't, but yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's what happened with my son. He started at 1. We finally found a really good pediatrician and because where we were at in Santa Rosa, the only clinic that treated TSC was Oakland, California, Roseville, California, and it's sometimes to do like the MRIs and everything were in San Francisco.
Wow.
So I had to go to San Francisco. That's about an hour drive. So I had to go to San Francisco for MRIs and then Oakland for the TSC clinic. But the doctors there weren't still as compassionate. And I'm like.
At the clinic?
At the clinic.
Wow.
And it just was very hard because I felt like I didn't get to soak in every information that I wanted because it was like, this is what it is and this is what you have to do. It became almost like robotic. Conversations and what to do. So.
Interesting. No, that's good to hear because they were pretty compassionate. I mean, I saw Dr. Teal with tears in her eyes more than once, I think that's.
It wasn't until I moved here to Maryland and I think I was here, 6 months or a year and my son was seeing a pediatrician and she asked him what he had and she says, you know what, there's a place called Candy Krieger. And I was like, okay. And she says they're neurologists and they actually work with TSC and autism. And I was shocked.
Oh yeah. Huh.
I was like, they actually work, because over there in the clinics in California, it was like one little office, nothing like real fancy. And
there were no resources right. So you're kind of just going through the motions of getting,
so I get to Candy Krieger and I meet Dr. Gibson and she was amazing. She came in, hugged my son, hugged me, and right away was like,
I felt that.
I was like, it was so encouraging. It made me feel like, okay, we're not alone.
Yeah, exactly.
You get it. You understand me. You understand my son. And then when you walk through the hallways, you see other TSC children the same because I have never met any other TSC child until I went to Candy Krieger.
Yep. And that's a moment. I still remember that.
Yeah.
The first few TSC moms I met.
Yeah. That from a bad diagnosis to a bad experience versus coming over here and having a better experience. And that made it more clear.
Yeah.
To a diagnosis.
Right. I think that's really how it goes. Like you just kind of get to a certain point and you kind of know a little bit more and you feel a little more stability.
Yes.
Not completely, but.
And my son fell in love with her. He was so happy when he sees her. He just smile. He gets excited. And she put me on the right path. And then the diagnosis from the TSC because.
So what did she do? I'm just curious. So you had an appointment with her and, now she's a psychiatrist. What's her?
She's a neurologist.
Neurologist. Okay. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So so she's a neurologist. So she's going to do all the typical neurological assessments and.
Exactly. And that's when we found out my son has ADHD, ODD. He does have the epilepsy and he does have the behavioral problems.
Yep.
And he has to get the MRIs, but she diagnosed everything and got him tested in his school because it was just, everything was just,
that's really good to hear.
I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand, okay, why is this behavior? Why? Cause
it's all because he has TSC. Really, yeah.
Right. I didn't understand. And then she gave me books. She gave me everything to understand that in California, nobody gave me.
Okay. That's
not to say everybody in California, the doctors are all bad. I don't want.
Well, I think there's just a lack of understanding and it takes time and it takes.
Right.
It happens when it happens, but it's too bad.
Like I said, it's been 8 years, so I don't know who's there now.
Right.
I hope they're doing a better job now and everything. That's all I can hope for.
Yep, so. Absolutely. Yeah, so that's good to hear. How's it been for him as far as manifestations?
He does have brain tumors.
Mm-hmm.
He does have kidney cysts. And